Hey, it's Danielle from VA Lifestyle Design. In this video, I'd like to talk just for a moment about proofreading and proofreading as an integral part of your work as a virtual assistant when you're providing digital marketing support. So that day-to-day implementation, working with the images, text, videos, graphics on behalf of business owners when you're putting that all together for them. And the reason that proofreading came to mind today was because I had an email pop into my inbox that had a typo in the subject line of the email. So it may be obvious to you what a subject line is, but just in case you're not sure on that, the subject line is the snippet of text that you see in your inbox before you've actually clicked to open an email. So that really, in your face, apparent part of the text. When there's a typo there, it's very obvious because everyone on a business owner's email list is going to see that, whether or not they actually go ahead and open that email. Now, the interesting thing was in this particular example, the email came from a very popular software system. Actually, it's one of the software systems that I teach in the online biz skills course. I won't call them out by name because it's not relevant. It's just not appropriate to publish this publicly and, say, hey, you had a typo in your email, but it is a very popular system, one of the systems that I work with and teach. And the first thing that came to my mind when I saw this typo, I'll let you know what the typo is just for context as well. In the subject line, one of the words was speaker, or should have been speaker, S-P-E-A-K-E-R. But there was a random T slotted in there. So I think it was like S-T-P or S-P-T. So it was a very kind of obvious typo, so to speak. So it's very glaring. And the first thing that came to my mind was not like, oh, that brand is unprofessional, or oh, I'm not going to follow that brand anymore. The first thing that came to mind was, and of course I'm not because I work with the system, but the first thing that came to mind was, oh, I feel so bad for whoever on the team, was the one sending that out because, obviously they're going to get feedback. A big brand like that, they'll receive emails back saying you've got a typo in your subject line. And one of the team members is going to have an awkward conversation about that. And I just know how that feels. I know that feeling. I was trying to kind of reflect, all the time I've been working online. I thankfully, touch wood, don't think that I've let a typo slip through in a subject line, but I absolutely have put very critical, important details in the body of an email, like once you click through. And it was for a client's high-level mastermind program. In other words, the people receiving this email were paying my client a lot of money to receive support from my client. And I put the completely wrong time and link in from an outdated digital event. And when I realized that I'd done it, my heart just sank and I felt a bit nauseous. And I said to my husband, oh my gosh, I've got to send an email to my client, right? So the first thing I guess you could say is this happens, right? It happens. My personal take on it, working online now for I think it's 9 years or so, it happens all the time. You will get clients, audience members and audience members writing in to, critique them on those typos and so forth, and you may be providing the support to answer those emails if you're also doing customer support as a virtual assistant for that same client. So you'll know that the audience notices it and responds to it, but my take on it is that it doesn't really negatively affect the business or the brand. It's more about you as the VA, as the team member, as the detail-oriented person, perhaps even a perfectionist, dare I say, feeling like, you let the team down, so to speak. That, for me, that's the only real kind of relevant part. Other things can be resolved. Emails can be resent if it's a critical error like the one that I mentioned to you that I made, which is my most memorable error, probably due to the nature of those clients. But I wanted to share with you a couple of things with regard to proofreading that I've really noticed make it a whole lot easier. And I wouldn't say foolproof, but gives you more confidence in your accuracy in your work as you consider or start working online as a virtual assistant. Now, the first one, just check I'm recording, yep. The first one is, if at all possible and wherever you've got the opportunity to schedule your work in advance, try and leave a 24 to 48 hour gap between when you're putting a piece of content together. And when I say a piece of content, if you're not working online yet, what I mean by that, a piece of content could be an email broadcast with a subject line like that example I shared. It could be a social media post or a series of social media posts that you've scheduled in advance. It could be a blog post. It could be a web page that describes something or offers something. So any of these pieces of content, and there's others too, but any of those things that you're putting together, if you are able to schedule your work such that you give yourself 2 days lead time, or even 24 hours, or even worst case scenario, just do it in the morning, proofread it in the afternoon, but some gap that is between when you created and wrote or piece that together, if you weren't writing it from scratch but you were piecing it together from different snippets elsewhere. And then when you proofread it, there's something funny that goes on. I don't know, maybe any neuroscientists or what have you, or specialists in this will know why the brain does this. But for some reason, when you proofread directly after you've written, this is definitely what I found myself and with other people that I've discussed it with. You proofread directly after you've written it, your mind skips over things very easily. It's a very funny thing. I find that I can very cleanly and accurately and efficiently proofread someone else's writing, whether that be the client wrote it, whether that be another team member wrote it, whether that be an outsourced copywriter wrote it for my client and I'm proofreading it, because I'm like on task, I'm looking at the words, I had nothing to do with the creation of those words, but I'm proofreading it as its own task. That's so much easier for me to do accurately than proofreading my own work. I'm sure perhaps if you have been following me for any time, you've seen emails. I'm quite sure you would have seen a typo in some of my emails because naughty client, I don't always get my team member who supports me with proofreading to proofread everything. Sometimes I've got something on my mind and I just want to get it out, which you'll find is the case with a lot of clients actually. It happens and I do it too when I'm the client. So that differentiator there, when you're proofreading content that's come into you in draft format, for sure, you don't need a gap because you didn't write it. But when you put it together yourself, I find that gap is fantastic. Couple days if you can, beginning of the day to the end of the day. Otherwise, now that you can't always allow that time because sometimes things need to be turned around quicker. But whenever you can, whenever you do have those ongoing week by week or day by day tasks where you can schedule that in advance yourself. And then I guess, the other thing, if that content is coming in, knowing that, what my experience has been is that when you're working with professional copywriters, people that are designating, titling, labeling themselves as a copywriter, my experience has been that probably over 95% of the time or even 98% of the time, they're pretty spot on with their proofreading because they take that seriously as part of their work as copywriters. However, it's very common that you'll be working with text that was written by the client themselves who might have more of an entrepreneurial focus and have different ideas bouncing through their head while they're piecing something together. Even if they can spell, just the nature of what's going on in their head. It's not about whether or not someone can spell, And then other team members. So if another team member isn't necessarily calling themselves a copywriter, but they just happen to be good at writing the content for this one particular thing, but you're the one that proofreads it, adds links in, adds images in, creates graphics for it or what have you, then yes, absolutely proofread that with a fine-tooth comb. Yes, when it comes from a copywriter as well, but just wanted to share with you that my experience has been that, anyone that's labeling or professionally working as a copywriter tends to be really on point with the copy. I'm just going to check my notes to make sure I didn't miss anything. Right, so here's the thing. This is a really important part of it. When you start working online as a virtual assistant or any other type of freelancer, what you can really make a kind of differentiator between in your mind is, when I publish this content, can I edit it afterwards or not, right? So most content that you publish on web pages or even on Facebook or Instagram, you have the ability to edit that after it goes live, right? You might have scheduled it in advance and you go, oh, I missed that letter or there's a typo there. it might have been up for 2 hours or even a day, but you can still jump in there and edit that word. It's not ideal, but you can fix it up. The thing with emails, with email subject lines, like this example I showed you today, and email broadcasts that get sent out, once that's in the recipient's inbox, it can't be edited. It's out there in the recipient's inbox. So with that in mind, email content and email subject lines are something that I have always taken a little bit more time and felt that was absolutely justified. And what I mean by justified is, yes, I should take the time, and yes, I should keep my time tracker on and add that, full, thorough proofreading time, not this skim proofreading, but a full diligent proofreading time to my task time entry that will then be billed to the client. That's what I mean by justified. And I even in my task time entry include the word proofreading. So formatting, proofreading, image research, link checking. I won't go all into that, but I include the proofreading as a little notation with my time entry. And that extra time goes into the proofreading. Now, absolutely, I proofread everything else as well, but there are certain instances, like, let me give you one quick example. The client is going to an event, and they're going to be speaking. They want a particular opt-in page, a landing page to give something for free, or to offer something to that audience that they're going to be speaking to, and you need to turn it around quickly. Okay, cool. You might not be able to, give yourself that 2-day gap, but get it up, publish it, come back to proofread, a second time as soon as you possibly can. So I want to share with you there that there are grey areas here, right? You need to work within client expectations and the context of the piece of work you're doing. But the whole idea here is that some content most content can be edited after it's published. Ideally, you don't want typos to go out, but it absolutely happens. It's happened so many times to me on blog posts and landing pages and social media, in client work, not just my own stuff that I don't get proofread a lot of the time. And then some content can't be edited. Now, I mentioned email broadcasts and subject lines as a key piece there. But another couple of things to mention are graphics. So whether it's you creating that graphic as a virtual assistant in a tool called Canva, or in another tool, but a popular one is Canva, or it's you delegating and briefing a graphic designer with the text that should go on a graphic. In either case, it's very important to get that text super accurate. The reason being is because it's more challenging to edit. It absolutely can be done, but you've got to recreate the graphic, update the post, and so forth. It's not just a matter of editing, text on the screen. And also, if a graphic designer is involved, then there is expense involved if there's mistakes. Usually a graphic designer will pick up a spelling typo, but you might need to pick up any typos in terms of making sure the phrasing is accurate and has been already confirmed with the client, because revisions through a graphic designer, can add up in terms of expense that gets billed to your client, or you pay them if you're collaborating. But yeah, I'll leave it at that. Graphics and also videos. So videos, subtitles, absolutely the subtitles can be edited. But again, it's something that can take some time. And if people have already started engaging with a video and those video views are accumulating, it takes longer. But for now, and especially as a beginner virtual assistant, before you're working with videos and so forth, email, subject lines, and body copy is where to focus for the proofreading with the extra round with the fine-tooth comb. All right, I really hope that helps, and talk soon. Ciao for now.